Educators, how y'all doing? It's Friday. What's going on, guys? My name is Silas Knowles, the ZB Pirate at the Pushing Boundaries PB podcast for pushboundconsulting.com. We are an educational consulting firm specializing in the greatest professional development in the world. Please put your inquiries, if you're looking for professional development tailored to your school or your district. If you are one of those people, info at pushboundconsulting@gmail.com. You can DM me at ZB Pirate on Twitter, Facebook page at Pushbound EDU, Pushbound Education, Twitter at Pushbound Education. We're trying to get everywhere, man. There's a lot of things going on. I hope everyone's doing well. We are slowly but surely, everyone's coming out of being in hiding and in quarantine, if you will, starting that hybrid, starting that phase back into schools. Everyone, you guys are doing awesome. I mean, there's a lot of educators out there, a lot of people who are pushing the boundaries of classrooms virtually or in person, and making those moves to try and make it easier for everyone. This one's a special one for me because I have been following our next guest for years on the socials. It's like he takes what you're feeling as a teacher, being a high school teacher myself, he takes what you feel as a teacher and he says it. Like every YouTube video he puts out there, it's like he's speaking to you. Trevor Muir, how you doing, brother? I mean, and I'm not trying to blow smoke or anything. And
man, you're making my head all big. I love it though.
No, but I've been following you. I mean, the author of the Epic Classroom, the Collaborative Classroom, videos, TED Talks, virtual keynotes, all sorts of stuff. You have the videos you put out there, brother. I mean, your socials are just ridiculous. It's like literally you speak to every teacher that I've ever referred you to. It's like, man, especially your tired video. If Trevor's going to go, everyone out there, Trevor's going to go through all his socials, but you have to look up the video named Tired, like the one about teachers being tired. And it just literally word for word coming out of my mouth. And I'm just like, oh my God, he's speaking. I felt like I was fanboying. He's speaking to me. Jesus. So
thanks, man. That means a whole lot. And that teaching is tiring. That was probably the 5th video I ever did. And it was funny. It was just telling a story from when I was teaching 6th grade, or no, not sorry, 6th hour with a class of 10th graders. And some kid says to me, he's like, I was like, man, I'm tired. It was 6th hour, right? It's pretty explanatory. And this kid goes, teachers always say they're tired. And I was like, you wonder why? Why do you think that is? And so I literally just put all the reasons why I was tired. And then I thought of all the reasons why it was worth it. Why do I keep doing this? What am I, some kind of masochist? Why do I subject myself to this type of work? And so I just made a little video out of it. And it turns out I wasn't the only one feeling that way.
No, you weren't.
And so I love that the way you describe some of my work is that it makes you feel like he's saying what I'm thinking. It's good, because that's the idea, is that this work is too challenging and too multifaceted and too just hard to do alone. And so anything that we can all do to make each other feel supported and heard, and then given ideas to make it even more successful, then it's let's do that.
So for anyone who doesn't, and if you're an educator, you must be under a rock if you haven't seen this guy on Twitter or YouTube or whatever. But please, Trevor, please tell everyone who you are and what you're all about, because I think, that's why I reached out to you, because I'm just the one person I think in this time that we need to talk to is you, because, you're encompassing basically you push boundaries every day with what you do. So tell everyone who you are.
Yeah, I mean, so I live here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but I actually grew up in Florida. And so I spent my first 22 years there. And for some reason, again, I'm a masochist. I moved to the north because I wanted the punishment of cold weather or something. But, I remember so vividly being a middle school student the year that my parents were getting divorced. And it was just the most hard stage of my whole life. And it still is. It was an unbelievably challenging time. And I felt so little support in so many areas of life. And part of that because it's middle school and it's just a difficult transitional time. But then all of these things were happening and some trauma and stuff I won't get into now. But it was a really challenging part of life. And I had this guy named Mr. Peters who just deeply invested his time and his energy and his capacity into me and to all the students. But I remember specifically into me. And this guy had this wild effect on my life, this ripple effect to where someday I became a teacher because of this guy. I was never a good student. I was never engaged in loving school, but I never forgot about what this guy did for me. And I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to help my students find success, achieve greatness, all these things. And so, yeah, literally as a result of that guy and the effect he had on me and the way he engaged in my story and got me to open up, I engaged in English class. I ended up becoming a creative writing major and then an English teacher and now an author. And it all stemmed back from that guy. And so my work has been in mostly high school classrooms, but now I'm also working at a university here in Grand Rapids where I'm working with future teachers and young professionals. But then I spend a lot of time collecting stories and research and ideas to help teachers figure out how to make learning more engaging and memorable for their students. And so that's another big piece of my time as well.
So you don't sleep is basically what you're telling me.
Yeah, sleep's a little overrated. Coffee. And can I just throw something out there? I know this is a little off topic. I have been looking for this coffee cup for 3 days. And I just, when you said that, I looked over and I was like, there's my coffee cup. So I'm now in like an extra good mood because I've been drinking cold coffee. But now I got my hot coffee back.
See, there you go. We back and forth. That's why I gave you the mojo to find your coffee cup. And now you can have it. And now you can be that much more effective as an educator to engage and everything else.
And to be honest, though, like people often ask, like, oh, do you sleep? And I'm like, here's the thing. Yes, I do rest. And I think that's important. But there's this thing about like when you have something that's driving you, like that's pushing you, you know what I mean? Something that's bigger than just your own stability and just your own comfort. Like when there's this bigger mission that pushes you along, something that I discovered in my mid-20s, which led me to becoming a teacher, which still is the same thing that drives me, even though the people I teach is often different than when I was teaching high schoolers. Now it's really trying to like, how do I help other educators? How do I help young, older students or whatever it is? It's like when that thing's driving you, it's like, that's the kind of thing that keeps you up at night and gives you energy. And that's why, like for teachers, it's like, it's easy to forget why we got into this work. And so maybe some of our work needs to be reminding ourselves, what is that purpose, that authentic reason why I should be grinding, why I want to keep doing this work, why working through a pandemic is worthwhile. And so I think there's a lot of value in figuring out what our purpose is as educators, but then also taking that and realizing that's the same thing that motivates students. When the work they're doing is authentic and purposeful, you're going to find their engagement and their will to hustle and grind is heightened as well. And so that's something I'm always trying to figure out. What's driving me? How can I help other people feel that same type of drive? And then how do we help students do it as well?
What do you think during this difficult time in education, what do you think is the number one thing that educators are trying to overcome?
Yeah. I was just talking with a friend about this today. When we're in a physical space with people, you kind of get the rewards of the work way more frequently. You see that kid who was disengaged all of a sudden sit up straighter, or you see kids smirk or smile at your lame dad jokes, or you see that kid who just desperately needs a Mr. Peters in their life, shows up before school just so he could be around you. Like these are the things that fill up your cup. And it's really hard to operate from an empty cup, right? You can't overflow if your cup is on empty. And these are some of the things, at least in my experience, and a lot of the teachers I get to communicate with, that they get filled up from these physical reminders of, oh, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But when you're teaching virtually or kids who are behind masks and you can't connect with them in the same way, it's hard to be reminded that, hey, this work is still worth it. You know what I mean? Like none of this to say is that teachers aren't having an impact virtually. Of course they are. But the indicators, the success is harder to realize sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel. I mean, but I've never thought, because in our district where I teach at my high school, we can't force them to turn on their screens.
That's right.
I try to engage them to turn on
and
their
screens. Get it. Yep.
But it's more difficult because I never thought I'd be teaching through a chat box. I never thought I never thought I'd teach through a chat box, and it's different, but I know it won't be this way forever. I hope
it won't be like this forever. And you know what? The consistency you bring, even in that chat box, is more than consistency than a lot of kids get elsewhere. You know what I mean? And so I still think there's value in showing up in that way. Like I think a lot of teachers are being measured right now, or feeling at least the pressure to get 100% participation out of their students.
right.
But I don't think that's the job of us right now. I think the job of the educator is not 100% participation. It's to continue to give students the opportunities to succeed. And whether they accept those opportunities or not is beyond us. But we can continue to show up. We can continue to have those optional meetings. We can continue to invite students to turn on their screens so that we can connect with them in that way. And if you don't want to do it, I mean, I met with my group of college students on Wednesday. It was our first time meeting together, and it was the first time I met them. And oh man, there was like 30 students on, and 28 of them had their screens off. And I just was like, and I did a plea. I was like, guys, I'm not going to make you turn them on because I understand circumstances. However,
Right.
we're about to spend the next 5 months together, and it's going to be really hard to connect, and it's going to be really hard to engage, and it's going to be really hard to get to know you if I'm not even sure if you're there, or if you are there, but I can't see your face. And so use the technology we have to hide your background if you want. But I would strongly encourage you to turn on your screen, and that's for me and that's for you. And so, and it worked. Guess what? Like 30 kids turned on their screens. And it's not always the case. I know that, but having that impassioned plea did something. And what I feel like is happening right now is we learn these little tricks about how to make this successful in the virtual space, that we're going to be able to take a version of that back with us when we are completely back to normal. You know what I mean? Like, the way of being raw and open and honest with students about like, hey guys, I have a request of you, and you don't have to do it, but it would make my life so much easier. That's something we can say in a regular classroom too. You know what I mean? Like that's something like, hey guys, I'm having a really rough day today, and I won't go into all of it, but just know I'm having a rough day. Can you help me out? You know what I mean? Like that's a good line. And I'm sure you've used it before.
Yeah,
and it's like, we're learning now that we need to use it more. That vulnerability has power.
But why aren't more teachers that vulnerable? Why aren't more teachers learning to be that vulnerable in front of their students? I mean, even during this time, because it shouldn't be that way in person or virtual. We can do that any day. I mean, why do you think it is?
Oh, for a number of reasons. One, I think we live in a culture that says vulnerability is weakness. Right? Like we live like, oh, don't be vulnerable. That's showing your weakness. But in reality, when you're vulnerable, that's the only way you can be creative. If you want to create something, you are taking the chance that people are going to reject it, that they don't like it, that it's not good, and yet you're creating it anyway. That's vulnerability in of itself. And so you're not going to live a very creative life if you're not risking something, if you're not being vulnerable. So I think part of it's just baked into our culture, and I think that's just got to continue to change. I think the younger generations are doing the best job of that right now, is allowing their feelings to be worn outside. And then I think it's just part of the system. Is no, teachers are here to teach how to factor polynomials. The teachers are here to teach the causes and the effects of the French Revolution. And it's like, yeah, those things are important. I'm good with it. There's value in all that. However, I also think teachers are here to model citizenship and to model some of the traits of the ideal graduate and model what it looks like to be human and be real. And I found the more I do that, the more students respond. The more I do that with teachers, where I let them know I bleed too. It's really easy to make these videos of mine and have that, and use those nice cameras back there and turn on lights and have this nice tight 5-minute thing where I talk about something to look like, oh, wow, there's somebody that's got the answers. Oh, wow, there's somebody who's got this figured out. And it's like, no, I bleed too. We all do. You know what I mean? And so like, I'm going to be raw and honest as much as I can, because that all of a sudden is going to get other people to engage as well. I think it's just an awareness of it.
I tell my students all the time, I'm just like, I'm a human being too. And I try and tell them like, look, this is the time that it really stinks. This stinks. I want to be a face-to-face teacher, but I'm trying the best I can with what we have in this situation. This is not my choice. This is not your choice. And let's make the most of it. And I think they appreciate that honesty, but I think you're right. I mean, in our culture, in our society, being vulnerable is, you can't be vulnerable. You can't show weakness. And it's like, yeah, you can. It's okay. We're not perfect.
You can and you should. I remember one time in my very first year of teaching, I'm teaching class and having a good time, and I'm a brand new young teacher and got all this energy. And I remember one kid raises his hand. I was like, yeah. And he goes, hey, did you go to jail? I was like, what? He's like, did you go to jail? I was like, no. He's like, well, then why did I just Google your name and find your mugshot? And he holds up a picture of me when I was 18 years old. And I was doing something back when I was 18 that's pretty legal now, but it wasn't legal back then. Are you with me?
I am with you. I got you.
And so he holds this picture up. And he's like, well, then what's this? And I like froze there. And I just kind of flipped. I was like, hey, close your laptop or you can get out of my room. Like, I was like, I don't know what to do. And so everybody's like kind of wondering. And that night, I mean, I went to my principal that afternoon and I was like, hey, I told you about this in the interview, but I wasn't expecting kids to find out. What do you want me to do? And she's like, hey, it's all disclosed. You're fine. She's like, but they are going to wonder why it was there. Cause it turns out a company, this is the worst thing in the world. A company goes and pulls people's mugshots. And by the way, if I wasn't clear enough, I wasn't doing anything terrible, but it was something that was just illegal back in the early 2000s. Is that clear enough?
Okay. Oh, I'm right with you. I'm sure everyone else.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, he didn't murder anybody. Okay. We're not talking to Trevor Muir, the murderer. We're talking Trevor Muir, the teenage kid that probably did some stuff that some other people do now that's quite legal.
Yeah, but it rhymes with the word lead. This is pushing boundaries, right? We're pushing those boundaries out. Yeah. And so like this website goes and takes your mugshot and they put it online, and for a fee you can pay them to take it off. So it's like they hold you hostage. And so I mean, right? That's terrible. It literally exists. And so I didn't know what to do. And I really wrestled with this. My principal's like, do whatever you want. But I didn't want these kids to think I was some kind of murderer or something. Like, why? What? Because there's no description of the mugshot. And so I went into school that next day and I was like, hey guys, I want to tell you something. And I just told the story and I told them what I learned from it and like getting in trouble and my journey since then and how I'm not afraid of that story and all this stuff. And like, I just told this whole story of it. And then I told them why that picture's online. And the next day I'm in class, I'm coming in and I'm watching kids secretly pass this envelope around the room and they're kind of like keeping secrets. And I'm like, oh no, like I knew it. This was going to spiral into something and they're making fun of me or they're passing around the picture or something like that. Right. I was like, hey, what's in the envelope? And they're like, oh, nothing. I was like, no, bring it up here. Like a classic teacher. He brings up the envelope and it's full of cash. And I was like, what is this? And they're like, we were raising money so we can get that picture offline for you.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome.
And it's just like to this day, I'm like, this is why we're vulnerable. It's like a connection was formed. And I got to tell you, Silas, like every year I start off the year by just being open with that story instead of waiting for them. Now, if you go on Google, I've got enough content where you can't really find it anymore. But back then you didn't. And like, I just start off and it's like, I've got story after story of kids coming and telling me the truths about the things that they're hiding and about how living this second life is too heavy and about how they don't want it that way. And like, but then you go from there and it's like, hey, we've got this connection, pay attention in English class. Hey, we got this connection, like write this paper, whatever it is. There's this power between relationship and our authenticity with students that opens the door to all this stuff. And I think part of my work is letting teachers know like, hey, you can be vulnerable. You don't have to tell kids everything. Of course not. We need boundaries, but we should push those boundaries. You like, see what I just did there?
I like what you just did there.
Yeah. Hey, this podcast was brought to you by Pushing Boundaries Consulting, LLC. Yeah. So, yeah. And I think there's just a lot of power in that vulnerability. And I think we just got to get the message out there that it's worth it. But it's also risky. It's also risky.
This risk taking and being able to be vulnerable is a risk by itself. But yeah, that's incredibly ridiculous at the same time. And that's just having, I mean, what was your thought when you saw that envelope and found out it was money what was your first reaction?
Oh, I was like, sweet, I'm rich. Low on money. Here's like a whole like cash influx. I love it. No, I was just like, guys, I was just like, I had so much like adornment for these kids. I was like, you are special. And you, like, of course you are, because you're humans. You're inherently good, and you're letting it shine right now. And it also made me feel honored that they would feel that way about me. But then I also said, like, but we're not going to pay these jerks money. I don't care if that picture's online. That's my story. And so we took the money, and I said, what do you want to do with this? And we donated it to a refugee agency that we were doing a project with. And we were like, hey, let's go do something good with this. And that's what we did. So
very cool. Very cool. Going back to our state of things right now, what is the one thing you struggle with the most during this time? Like in teaching, like what's the one thing you struggle with that you hold close?
Yeah, I miss personal connection, like in person with people. Obviously we can connect virtually. I do believe in that. Like, we're connecting right now and having a great time. I connect with students. I had a great time the other night with students. I've been doing a lot of virtual PD and keynoting and workshops with teachers this year, and it's been wonderful. I've loved it. And I've also loved that I can do on Saturday, I did a keynote in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, and I did it from right here in my basement. And so it was so great. Like, I didn't have to get on a plane, and I didn't have to leave my kids. And so that's been glorious. However, I also miss being with people. I miss getting to see people's reactions. I miss getting to hear people's stories and converse. I miss going to conferences and chatting with teachers there and just all the stuff that comes with getting to do the type of work I do. I miss, my college class I'm working with right now. Dang, I love driving down to the university in the downtown on Wednesday nights and getting to spend 3 hours with these students and getting to walk alongside them. I miss that. But I also know it's coming back. And I also know that there's a lot that we're gaining from this, and I'm going to take back with me when we do get back to quote unquote normal. But yeah, I mourn the loss of being with people this last year.
I don't even know, when you say quote unquote normal, I don't even know what that looks like anymore. I don't know what that's going to be, because I know we were changed for the good. I think we've learned a lot during these last 9 months, however long it's been. But it's getting to the point where, I hope people will embrace this change and really come back with it when we actually come back to some sort of normalcy when it comes to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked with the school this morning in Oklahoma, and she was like, we really want to figure out how do we get kids to engage right now. And we're just like, we have such amazing teachers, but we're just looking for answers. Like, how the heck do we engage kids virtually or hybrid or all this stuff? And so we talked about some different things. And then, like, I love what she said. She's like, what we're excited about is maybe some of the ways that we learn to engage kids now. And that, some of the things we talked about were project-based learning and making things hands-on and skills-based and, having content that's tied to authentic tasks. And she just got really fired up about this idea. Like, what I'm excited is if we can help teachers do it now when it's the hardest to do it, think about what it's going to be like when we're back with kids full-time and they're getting to do this stuff. And so I was like, what a great perspective.
It's going to be awesome when, looking at it that way. One of my, and I always like being mindful of everyone's time here, and we appreciate you here. But I do have one question I really was looking forward to asking you, knowing your videos and knowing your content and everything else. If you had the choice to teach one class on anything you want, not subject-based, not curriculum-based, but just anything, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've got my answer already. I would want to teach people how to catch alligators without killing them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so good. Thanks for having me on the show. We'll talk to you later. Good stuff. No, I tell you, I was a Florida boy growing up, and that was something I wasn't into video games really. We didn't have all the technology we do have now, and so I used to spend a lot of time out in the Florida wilds catching alligators and relocating them.
I thought you were totally joking. Are you serious?
YouTube it. I'm not gonna post it because I don't want PETA after me, but there's some evidence on YouTube, a couple of big ones. But it was just such a thrill. And I remember I took a speech class in college, and we got to write a speech about whatever we wanted. It had to demonstrate how to do something, and my speech was about how to catch alligators. And I got a D-, and I got a D on it. And I failed speech class.
You got a D- on something that you've actually done? I mean, that's...
Yeah, I know. It just makes me want to be like, there you go. Go catch alligators. So I'm still waiting for that opportunity. Nobody's asked me how to do it yet, and it's illegal. But
that's your next TED Talk is when TEDx comes back, in person. Right. Alligator. Okay, alligators.
Yeah. And here's how catching alligators relates to life or introverts or something like that.
Can you make catching alligators relate to education?
100% it's dangerous. But I tell you what, 14-year-old girls are way scarier than 14-foot alligators. That's just a fact.
Yeah, that's true.
And boys too. They're all 14-year-olds have this ability to scare me at times. So, but you know what? Sometimes you just got to just jump right in and go for it.
So if you're a administrator at your school, and I'm a teacher and I'm struggling during this virtual time.
Yep.
And I come to you as my boss and I say, what can you tell me to help me move past this? What would it be?
Wait, so am I the administrator or am I the teacher?
You're the administrator, I'm the teacher.
Yeah. Oh.
What would you say?
I think the first question I ask is, what are you doing when you're not teaching? Like, are you making time for yourself?
Yes, I'm trying to rest, be with my family, and try to spend time with them.
Are you turning off your email at 4 p.m. every day with no exceptions?
No.
Are you telling parents, hey, here's my office hours and these are the only times I can respond to you by email?
No.
And if you have a question about homework, it's all right. I'm in charge of the grade book. I can add an extension if you really need to get a hold of me at 7 p.m., but I can't email you at 7 p.m. because I cannot overflow from an empty cup. And so I got to make sure I'm filled up. So that's what I would say. And I know it's easier said than done because this is demanding work. And most people teaching virtually have much bigger class sizes than they're used to and the same expectations. And, I posted something on social media the other day about like most standardized tests were canceled this year. What if we kept doing that in other years? And everybody lambasted me. They're like, my standardized tests haven't been canceled. The state of Virginia hasn't canceled them. Ohio hasn't canceled them. Mississippi hasn't. And it's like, oh, sorry. And I went and deleted it because I'm like, oh, apparently teachers are still being held to the same standard. And so, yeah, I get it. It's easy to be on all the time. But we don't have any space for superheroes right now. We need people who can take care of themselves so that they have the capacity to take care of others. And I found in my own experience, but then a lot of teachers I've talked to is the ones who take good care of themselves have a lot more to give in the classroom, more patience, more ideas, more fresh brain to operate off of. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Excellent. I mean, and then obviously with you finding your coffee cup, now you can be rejuvenated with.
I thought I lost it. I'm so pumped right now.
Don't you hate that? Don't you hate that though? You have that one coffee mug or hydro flask or water bottle, and that's your go-to. And you're like, man, I don't want to go buy another one because that was my go-to. And then you find it.
I know. Miracles do happen.
Definitely. Trevor, I do appreciate you, brother. What can you tell everyone, social media, what you're working on, where they can find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on my website at trevormuir.com. And that's where I put a lot of videos and stuff I do, or you can get in touch with me there. I also have a new online course out called How to Thrive as a Virtual Teacher. And it's just 10 modules with some really concrete ideas and inspiration about how to not just survive this time, but actually thrive during it. So you can find that on my website as well, How to Thrive as a Virtual Teacher. And I forgot I did this. If you use the coupon code EPIC, so EPIC, it takes 25% off or something like that. So anyway, you can check that out. And then you can find me on social media at Trevor Muir, on Facebook, Trevor Muir, The Epic Classroom, Instagram, The Epic Classroom. So
do we have any information on a next book?
Yes, but that's top secret. Secret. No, I've got some sweet stuff in the hopper cooking up right now. But I'm not exactly, it's not feeling solidified yet enough to share the idea, but it has to do with purpose and what happens when we put authenticity into the work we're doing. So I'm thinking like the purposeful classroom or the authentic learning, or I don't know, you just have to wait. So we'll see.
A couple podcasts ago, we were talking with a principal and we came up with his new book, Principling in the Pandemic. So I thought that was a good title. And I told him, I said, I'll write your foreword. That's perfectly fine. And, we'll go forward with that. So Trevor, I do just keep in mindful of your time. I do appreciate your time, brother. This is the best podcast I do are the ones where you just sit and talk education. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Well, I appreciate the work you're doing, and everybody who's listening, just keep trucking. It won't be like this forever, but it is right now. And I'll leave you with a good quote. I just heard this quote the other day. Every memory we have was made in the present. So chew on that a little bit.
I will. That's a good quote. Everyone, guys, thank you so much. Pushbound Consulting PB Podcast. What are you guys doing to push the boundaries of your classroom, either virtually or in person? And just remember, at the end of the day, no matter what anyone says, we're here for our students. Trevor, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
You bet. Peace, everybody.